Georg, would you mind doing a mic check?
Do you hear me? Yes.
Okay. Hello. We are very pleased to be here. This is the first time in I don't know how many years JP has been trying to get me to come to this event, and every year I'm like, I have this other thing. Oh, I have this other thing. In the past 2 years, it's been like, sorry, I can't make it. I'm running around Europe with my master. Oops. But we made a special exception, and actually, he had an opera that just opened at the Royal Opera House on Friday night. Quite a bit of success. And then we slept for like 3 hours and jumped on the plane to come here.
Thank you.
Wow. So we are really, really committed and very, very tired. But it's wonderful to be here, and I'm thrilled and honored. So what I thought we would do today, both of us have been teaching and presenting as part of our lives for many years. He as a composer and teacher in universities around Europe, and in Colombia right now is where he works. And he is freshly out as a kinky person, which has become kind of... So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I thought what we would do actually is both of us share our stories and then talk about how those stories came together. When I was trying to think of a topic for this, I was thinking to myself, well, I don't know, what do kinky people hear? And I looked at the lineup for the conference, which is amazing. So congratulations on getting such a really fantastic group of people together. But the thing that I could bring that I know no one else could bring is my story. And what has inspired me, why I got into kink, why I'm still here, why all of you are amazing creatures for being here, and how special that is, and what my life is like before, during, and currently with one of the most remarkable human beings I've ever had the pleasure to meet, and someone who certainly I never thought I would ever be able to find and to serve. So for those of you who are here in the capacity as people who do power exchange dynamics, this is for you. For those of you who are here in the capacity of folks who are looking for love, or a reasonable facsimile thereof, this is definitely for you. For those of you who have found either of those previous things, this is definitely for you. And for those of you curious about how a girl from the projects in Harlem married a composer who grew up literally in a mountain valley in the Alps.
But there's a canyon is common.
Yes.
You grew up, that's the first time about her, it was amazing. She read, she grew up in the canyons of New York. And I said, what? I grew up in the canyons too.
Sound of Music canyons, anyways. Oh. They don't, like as a sidebar, Austrians are not really huge fans of the Sound of Music. Strangely enough.
Pizza with noodles. That's like pizza with knives.
Yeah. He literally started shouting so loudly, he's like, "Schnitzel is not with noodles, why are they singing this?" And I'm like, oh my god, artistic license. And I calmed him just in time for like the crisp apple strudel. He was like, crisp apple strudel! No! That's great. Some of you actually, how many folks here follow me on Facebook? Okay, cool. So for some of you, this is like old hat stuff. So I will tell my sort of background, and then you can tell your background, and then we will interweave them. So, hi, my name is Mollena. That is my actual real name. Thank you. Appropriate for later segments in the story, as you will see. I am 46. I grew up in New York City. I was born in New York Hospital in New York City. I went to a school for gifted children, basically because I was one of those little nerdy weirdos who would have gotten the shit beaten out of me if I'd been in a public school, really. So my life was pretty much saved by that. I started acting when I was about 5 years old. I started performing in film and television. And that was a hilarious side product of me showing off from some of my mom's friends at work, because I started reading really early. And I was sitting at my mom's desk reading the Times, and it was bigger than I was. And they were like, oh, how cute, she thinks she can read. My mom's like, no, she can't. And then I'm like, oh, read this thing. And I read this whole article about President Nixon. And they're standing there, like, gathering around the desk, like, well, what is she, what? And then someone, of course, was like, well, she can read it, but what is her reading comprehension like? And he leans over and goes, so what do you think this means? And I looked up and I said, it means President Nixon is an idiot. And they were like, ah. said, she is hilarious, you've got to get her into acting. And so I started going on auditions and acting and performing, which was very helpful because I was making actually quite a lot of money. This was the 70s, and it was very popular at the time to be a cute black kid. They had just discovered that actually black people spend money on stuff. And they were like, maybe we should market to them. And so I did a shit ton of commercial work, which was very helpful because my family being really, really quite poor, that money came in very handy. So that was a really amazing way for me to be able to participate as a member of the family, even as a kid, although that was kind of strange, being very poor and also working very hard and seeing so many facets of life. I was always a sexual deviant, so that was something I discovered as a young kid. I had an encounter with a shower head at the age of 6 that changed my life. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't have caught on by now. And my mom used to catch me, and at one point I was literally like halfway in the shower and halfway out, like with the shower head on the required zone. My mom came in and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm taking a shower." At that point, I'd already established my weirdness, so this was like just another weird thing Mo was doing. I'm just gonna leave her to her business. I went to NY School undergraduate for theater and was actually unable to complete my degree thanks to some budget cuts from the Reagan administration. They were like, "Are you black and smart? You don't need to go to college. We're going to reduce all of your assistants." Woohoo! That's great. But I did land on my feet. I managed to start to work for the New York Shakespeare Festival, which was amazing. I then started dating a filmmaker. We moved to Los Angeles. We were going to be famous, and that was going to be great. That relationship collapsed on its head within another 2 years. And I found myself alone in Los Angeles, sport fucking, essentially, until I met this really, really hot British musician who was a very bad man. And on our first date, like leaned into my ear and whispered, "You've been a very bad girl. Do you know what happens to bad little girls?" And I'm like, "No, yes, no, I don't know what happens." So what ended up happening is that this guy spanked my ass, choked me with a belt, flipped me around the bed, beat the crap out of me, fucked the shit out of me. And the next morning, I'm thinking, I should press charges. That was assault. But instead, I picked up his laundry. And I got him coffee. And I picked up his cigarettes. And I thought to myself, I have found the one person on the planet who really understands me, who really gets me. And I spent the next 5 or 6 years trying to maintain an impossible long-distance relationship until the advent of this magical device known as the World Wide Web. And I discovered chat rooms. And I discovered, actually, before chat rooms even, I think it was on alt.sex.bondage. Some of you old creepy people will be like, "Oh yeah, back in the day." When the sound of foreplay was... like, yeah, here it comes. And by this point, I was living in San Francisco. There are a few perverts there. It's really great. And once a year, they all go into the street and like fuck each other in the middle of the sidewalk, which is grand. If you haven't ever been to the Folsom Street Fair in San Francisco, it's something that's worth just seeing. Even if you're not kinky, I think it's just such an amazing event. And so I figured, wow, oh my God, I have found my people. This is what I'm going to do when I went. And of course, because you don't do anything halfway, I found like one of the most extreme master-slave, old-school leather household guys who had like a stable of submissive women he was training, and you had to earn a collar. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to earn this collar, and I'm going to be the best and most intense slave ever. And I was constantly told that I was not very slave-like. I was constantly told that, well, to be a slave, you have to, and then they would list a bunch of attributes that didn't apply to me. You have to be quiet, you have to be invisible. And I was like, I'm not good at that. But I tried really hard. And I had a pivotal moment when my then trainer was hosting a leather tea party, and we had all trained for months to do this. And there were 5 of us girls who were all in service. And long story short, we pulled off the perfect, flawless dinner for 10 famous perverts, and it was amazing, and it was fantastic. And one of the women who had attended the tea sent him a thank you note and said, "I want to especially compliment you on your training of Mollena. Her service was beautiful to watch." And at our family meeting that weekend, he turned to me and said, "I received a note They complimented you on your service. And this is a problem. He said, you are to be invisible. No one should even notice your service. The fact that you stand out means that you are showing off. And you should not be, none of you should be different than any other. You need to blend in. So we're going to have to work on you shifting your approach to service. You're right, I didn't get it. Thank God. But I did decide that at that point, you know what? I guess I'm not a slave. And he gave me Viola Johnson's book, To Love, to Obey, to Serve. And Viola Johnson is one of the mothers of the leather community. And she wrote this book, and I read it, and I'm flipping through it going, holy shit, I'm not a slave. I can't do that, that's not me. And about a year or so later, I started teaching, I started presenting, interestingly enough, on playing with race in BDSM, a topic for a whole other day. But let's just say that this was not the most popular topic. It's still very controversial, but the thing is that it was a situation where the few people of color, can I just give a shout out to the brown faces in the room right now? This is amazing. 20 years ago, we weren't here. 20 years ago, you didn't see us. For us to be here now, to look around, and white people be grateful that we're here, because it's awesome, and brown people and people who are of the off-white spectrum, awesome to see you here, that's amazing. But at the time, there were so few people of color that the people of color who were there were like, you're going to fuck us up. They were afraid that now white people are going to be like, oh, we can do that? Oh my God, I have been waiting to repeal the freedom of black people in America. This is awesome. I'm just going to, Mo Williams said it was okay. Let me just go find myself a black slave. But that's not what happened, because most white people were like, no. But the thing is, strangely enough, everyone wanted this class. So suddenly I went from having about 2 years in the scene to teaching all over the States. And I managed to meet Vi Johnson, who was one of my idols, and I said, I want to thank you for your book. It saved me from wasting my time trying to be a slave. And she said, oh, that's very interesting. Why don't you tell me some more about that? And so I told her about my situation. I specifically told her about this tea party. I told her how I felt like I was just never meant to be a slave because my personality was not slave-like. And she looked at me and she said, honey, a slave is who you are. If your heart draws you to slavery and to service, go do it. Don't let anybody tell you what slavery means. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. You figure it out yourself. She said, I watched your face as you were telling me this story, and I saw how much this meant to you. And I know you will find the owner who sees you and knows that you are their slave. Don't let anybody waste your time. And I was like, okay, I guess maybe I can do it. And then began the 18-year process of trying to find the owner for me. And I will not detail that right now because it was a process, and I would like for my owner to be able to tell you his process to getting to this point. But let me suffice to say that after several relationships that were very important to me, after going through very serious bout of alcoholism, from which I'm recovered now since March 14th of 2007. I had an epiphany with a speaker whose name is Master Skip Chasey. And if you ever get a chance to hear him speak, he's the shit. But I didn't discover how much of shit he was until he pissed me off so bad, I had to roll up to his face and tell him how much he pissed me off. He was teaching a class called The Servant Master, which I thought was a remarkable idea. His thought being that the master actually is in service to the slave and their path as a slave. And that it's a dynamic where both are in service. And I'm like, this is some shit I need to hear. So I go to his class, and he's sort of establishing his terms, and he says something along the lines of, you know, service and slavery and mastery are active, they are verbs. You are doing them, and if you are not doing them, if you call yourself a slave or a master and you are not actively doing it, you are a wannabe. And I was like, oh, hell no! Of course, what actually started happening was I cried. In the back of the class, I'm crying because I'm like, Skip Chase just said I was a wannabe. I was like, what does this even mean? And I fucked up and actually snuck out of the room and was on Twitter like, someone just said this thing, and I'm crying now. And then on Twitter's like, they're a bad person for making you cry. Because I love Twitter for that. You can basically spin anything to get support. But whatever your position, I'm like, oh my god, this kid scratched me, kill all the cats. I'm like, fuck the cats! So I went afterwards to a meeting. We were talking about this, and Vi Johnson again was at this particular event. She encouraged me to go and speak to Skip Chasey, and I did. And he apologized and said, well, I meant with someone who wants to be, someone who is moving towards something. I didn't mean want to be in the pejorative sense. And I said, well, you could choose another word, like aspirant or acolyte, which, pause button on, I found out he actually does to this day. He shifted his language around that. So slaves, open up your mouths. Don't think that we're there to just stand in the corner silently because we change shit, right? Coming from me, he had a great deal of respect for it. And afterwards, he mentioned in a larger speech that he had been approached by one particular person who he had a great deal of respect for. I was like, he respects me, and I told him to his face. But he was teaching. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So he apologized. We had this great speech, a discussion. Then he was giving a speech the next day, and in the speech he talked about what had happened between us. And he gave a broader apology and said he was going to change his language. And I raised my hand and I said, thank you for that. I have a question. I wonder if you have any words of wisdom or motivation for those of us who are aspirants in this path. And he said, well, it might seem a little bit hackneyed, but I do believe truly when the student is ready, the master will appear. And I was like, what is this bullshit? Like 18 years looking for, and I'm not ready, fuck you. And then I got this amazing, like, you ever feel like your higher power or your guardian angel or your grandma from beyond smacks you in the back of the head with a frying pan from beyond? And I had one of those frying pan moments, and my higher power was like, think about it, when the fuck were you ready? And I did this, like, movie rewind cartoon thing where my whole life started rewinding from this path, and I thought about it, and I was like, no, well, okay, shit. When would I have been ready? When I was an active alcoholic, puking and pissing in the bed every night and waking up and drinking a pint of whiskey just to stop shaking? Was I ready then? When I was broke off my ass and could barely keep the roof over my head, was I ready then? When I had such low self-esteem that I would sleep with anyone who wanted to just so I could feel a little bit better about myself for a couple of hours, was I ready then? And I thought to myself, holy shit, I wasn't ready. But what was important about realizing that I wasn't ready was that my attitude went from, why don't I have what I want, I've been waiting so long, to thank you for giving me the room to be ready. When you look at time as a blessing and room for you to be the best you can be, your entire perspective changes. And I went from being depressed and sad that I was single to thinking, this is lonely, but when I meet the person, I will be ready. And another couple years went by, and I was about to give up again, but really, give up. I was like, you know what, fuck dating, fuck it. I'm not going to find the right owner. I'm running around the BDSM community all over the country, and in Europe, I'm looking all over the fucking map. I'm not finding that person. And I was in the shower in early December of 2013, talking to my higher power, saying, all right, you know what? I'm done. I've tried. January 1st, I'm going to get myself a real job. I'm going to give up on this whole kink thing. I'm going to go back to banking. I'll be an executive, and that's what I will do. Unless, before the end of this year, you send me the one who will do all the shit that I know no one's going to do, so I'm completely fine putting this out there. And about 9 days later, I got a message on OkCupid from a gentleman who wrote me a very lovely message and proved that he had actually read my post. Yes. And said, I see on your profile that I'm a little bit older than you are looking for, because I had picked some random age. I was like,
But you also wanted somebody who has an accent.
I didn't get to that part, sir.
You want to demonstrate that I have it.
He still has it. I had put in that I have a thing for English accents, and he said, well, I have an Austrian accent, is that okay? And I was like, no, Austrian German is not the sexiest language on the planet. But he wrote... I know some people are really aroused right now, though. You are all dirty, dirty perverts. And so he sent me this message, and his profile had so many fuck-ups on it. He had no picture, he had syntactical errors, and I was like, He's like, I'm a composer, and I'm a little bit known, so I'm a little bit shy about putting my picture up, but I can send you pictures, I will take them myself. And sent me 3 of the worst selfies I had in my life. They were terrible. And I said, okay, anyone who would take this picture and send it to someone who they're trying to fuck is okay. This is a person who was just like going for what they know. And I looked up some of his music on YouTube, and it was like weird contemporary music. And I was like, oh, this is going to be that shit that sounds like someone took a cat, set it on fire, and put it in a piano. But it was actually, didn't sound like that at all. It was very interesting and deep and wonderful. And I was like, okay, great. And then he invited me to his house for a first date, which of course sounds like everything they tell you not to do. But I'm like, look, I'm giving all of your information to 2 very, 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 very fierce lesbians. If I disappear, they will find you. You don't want a piece of them, I'm serious. So I went, plus I figured, I'm like, okay, he's a Columbia professor, like worst case scenario, I'm probably not going to wind up in a barrel, it's okay. So I trust academics, as bad a move as that is sometimes. So we went on our first date, it was actually kind of great. I think we got through the 2nd course, and then he was like, I must take you to bed. He's like mauling my boobs, and I'm like, oh, well, he's direct. It's great. So we had crazy sex, it was super awesome. He's like, can you come back tomorrow? I was like, yeah, sure. And our 2nd date, we were negotiating our master slave contract. He'd written up an experimental contract for himself, and I'm thinking this is going to be hilarious. Some guy who's never done DS before is presenting me with a contract. And I'm looking at the contract, and like the 2nd thing on the contract is, you know, well, I need you to be available to me at all times, so you can't really do any other work. I'm like, okay, so, but I will provide for you financially and make sure you're taken care of. Your food and your clothing, and you will have an allowance. And I'm like, okay. Again, your country doesn't have health care, so I'll make sure that you have health care. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm reading this, you know, and he had provisions for like how much sex we're going to have and with who, and, you know, and I'm thinking, this is not even a real thing that happens in life. And I want to wrap up and roll it over to him so you can tell your stories at this point, but I remember that 2nd day we were together thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to fucking do this. Because the gauntlet has been thrown down. And because it's difficult to be in a position where someone seems to be presenting you with everything you have wanted for decades. And I could not accept that this was real. I was assuming that at some point he would turn out to be a serial killer. At some point he would turn out to be really crazy, which that part is fine. It's like craziness I can fathom. You know, at the end of I think it was at the end of our first date actually, I was getting ready to leave, and I was standing by the door, and he grabbed what I thought was a machete. And I'm standing there going, okay, shit, should I punch him out now preemptively? Like, what's going on? And he grabs the machete and like sticks it in the back of his shoe and puts on his. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was this like machete-ass looking fucking shoehorn. And I told him the story later, so now like the shoe machete lives like in the front corner of our house. It's very hilarious. It's like, why did you not run? I was like, because maybe it wasn't a machete. I was betting on not a machete, and I succeeded. So that was December 21st, 2013. We'll be celebrating our 2nd anniversary. We were married on September 25th in a lovely synagogue in Brooklyn, which, despite the fact that neither of us are Jewish, is completely apropos. Well, the rabbi who married us also performed our collaring ceremony, You know why? Because rabbis are awesome, first of all. And she's a reform rabbi, obviously. Once you get the pronoun, you're like, she, rabbi, what? But yeah, there's Torah scripture about how to treat slaves. So it's actually really fitting. I was like, I love that you're quoting from the Bible at our collaring ceremony and like not even changing it. It's just straight up there. That's how that shit goes. So here we are, and we're having amazing adventures, and life is pretty fucking badass. And I would love for you to share your. Well, you saw what I said, so you can say so much stuff.
Well, I think first of all, I'm so happy to be here, and I really enjoy the atmosphere. You feel this, how do you call it? It's this sexually uploaded, erotically uploaded, I love it. Well, actually, my story is absolutely different than this of Mollena. I grew up in, not only in the mountains, but also totally isolated. My parents spoke a different language than the other people around us. Both seemed to be German, but with different kinds of German. And I had no information about sexuality. When I was 13 or 14, with my colleagues, I spoke. It's very interesting that nobody knows how children are coming out. And
Where babies come from.
Where babies come from.
I was like, where children are coming out. I will be translating.
And I always suppressed my sexuality. It was for me very difficult to accept what I feel in myself. I think the most difficult thing is to accept what you are hidden in yourself and to apologize yourself. And I started to become an artist, become a composer, and you can read very beautiful sentences about my music, about the dark music of Georg Friederich, and I thought, oh, if you knew what kind of darkness I have in you would be surprised. But I think this suppression made me very, very unhappy. And this is my problem. But it also made unhappy these women which are married, and maybe also my children, which is not so funny. And I think, and I say to everybody which is younger, please don't copy my mistake. Trust these things which you have inside. It's much more moral to accept that you are sadist than you have 2 or 3 divorces with amazing, very precious women who just are not able to share your.
2 maybe amazing precious.
2.
The third one was not so amazing. That's not funny. Okay, go ahead.
And then I decided, when I was 57, 58, I started to apply for a position in New York. And of course, I wanted to get a job in Columbia. Who does not want to do that? But there was a second thing, it was the same way important. I knew when I will come to the States, here I will dare to come out. I did not dare this in Austria because of the crazy reason I was afraid somebody could know about this. But they laugh about it, they had their coming out, and I have no problem with it. But 5 years ago, I was very ashamed. And I remember I came to New York. The first 2 weeks, my elder daughter was with me, and the day when she took the plane to Europe, I went to Tess.
The Eulenspiegel Society. Tess is the BDSM educational group in New York City.
And I never will forget this moment when I crossed the border. It is like Caesar crossed the Rubicon. And that's no joke. It is now I'm Jane. And I really think from the point of view of today, this changed my life. I very easily found a first play partner, a nice woman, was fine, but I was still. But then I met Mollena, and I had the same feeling as she had. I could not believe it. I have waited for 4 decades to get it, and it was almost impossible to trust her. And being a little bit cheated, especially by my last woman, my last wife, I was afraid this cheating could happen again.
No, but not cheating. You mean just? I think you mean a break between what you wanted and what you get. Cheating means someone had sex with someone else.
No. Oh, yeah. This would be normal.
As long as you could watch.
Okay. Well, what shall I tell about me, madam? I think what is a very special thing she's doing for me. I own her completely. We have a 24/7 relationship. That does mean that in average she's spending 21 to 22 hours a day with me. And I am so happy about it. And it makes it possible for me to do my profession as an artist. I may tell you about my last opera. It's an opera about dying. And the content is...
Which is shocking, I know. You're like an opera about dying?
But this opera is also to use the way of dying, because the dead person is the main person on stage, and he does not know that he is dead. And suddenly his death imminent, his wife is coming, his friend is coming. And I also knew when I wrote this is my personal future. In some years, maybe I will be there and will think, oh God, what is happening with me? Something so strange. I don't know how it will be, but it could be. And to be such intensely connected with death is terrible. And sometimes I cried, I was desperate. And she was with me. And I could write a very emotional, very deep music, which I never could have written if she would not be with me. And the amazing thing, and this is only one part, there are a lot of experiences like this. Maybe you know this idea, artists must be unhappy to write this music. Look at my life. Watch how much I have written during the time when I was desperate, and how much I have written since I'm in. It's and this is, and I think the most important thing is for me that I'm able to live this life as it is. And one of the huge chances, if you have a normal, vanilla marriage, you don't have only the relationship with this person. You also have the social context, how a connection like this has to be. We don't have this. We can find our own way to do it. And this is a huge chance we parents to have. But by the way, when I told somebody of my old friends, well, I must tell you, I'm pervert, I do this.
That's like how direct the Austrians are though. It was like, you should just know I'm a pervert. This is my slave.
I found a very interesting thing. I believe approximately 60% of everybody is pervert. But this fact, perverts the term perversion. Because what is pervert? So I think a monogamous Catholic who never cheats his wife, those are the real perverts. There's no jokes, that's this.
They're not laughing because it's a joke, they're laughing because it's ironic.
Okay, so
Austrians don't do ironic laughter. I have to explain this over and over again. Like, I'll be like, la, la, he's like, it's not a joke. I'm like, I'm not laughing because it's a joke. I'm laughing because it's like, how do you conceptually, this has been a rough thing for him to grasp. But you sometimes understand.
When I started to become a dominant in real life, I had one fear. I was sure a dominant person has to spend a lot of time by learning, flogging, caning, whatever. And I knew I don't have this time because I'm sitting on my fucking table and compose my fucking music. Fucking test song. And then Mollena made me clear, no, we don't need it. It's just if we both do what we want, it's fine. And of course, we had some problems. I think we should speak about them.
Yeah.
We should speak about the conflicts.
Well, we can. This was not the conflict part, this was the story part.
Sorry about that. I think the whole time I had only one central conflict. One of my central things has been I want to, but you must understand, she fucked around a lot of people. She
Not
enjoyed
that
it.
many. Okay, you like
maybe
around 100 people over my life, which is a lot for some people, but like not epic for others.
maybe it's 10 times more than I did. And I have always the impression
The politics of ratio.
I missed something. And I wanted to make orgies with her. Let her fuck her.
Orgy.
Orgies.
I'm sorry, orgy is hilarious, but people might not know what you mean.
Orgies, I wanted to fuck her. And I thought, and I was very angry. You know? I said, well, I think 95% all of the men want to fuck any woman. Why don't you find 5% for us to be even? And then I learned that what it means, what Mollena calls save the property. Of course, the prime directive. Of course it is possible. And they would handle my beloved partner like a free prostitute. And this would be good. For me, I don't like this. I think I want a kind of a deep emotional connection. And I had to wait for 14 months, I think, until it is the first time. And the mayor
Well, okay, sorry. Yes.
okay, yes, San Francisco, okay, there was a misunderstanding. Okay. But the family is amazing. And I understood, I have to trust her. She knows that even these things need a lot of time preparation. And I had a quite problematic psychotherapist who had a little bit knowledge about BDSM point of view, and she said, okay, you want this, you're the master, get it. And then we had some conflicts about it, some terrible conflicts. This is the only conflict, it's crazy, it's the only conflict I had with her, because she didn't like to fuck somebody else. It's ridiculous.
I love how I went from being like one of the most edgiest perverts in the scene to being like the cranky, like, let's stay at home and cuddle, sir. I only want to suck your dick. I don't need another 8 more dicks. It's fine. And he's like, more dicks!
not only big stuff.
More dicks. Dicks were like the big focus.
50%.
That's so cute.
I think what we are living now is a kind of a deep love. And a deep love which is based on the fact that we both do what we want, that we both trust our desires. That's everything. And I'm so grateful to Mollena that she makes it possible to live my life in a way which I dreamed. And I never had believed that this dream would become reality. But I must tell you, I'm now 62. I moved to the States when I was 16. And I started a completely new life with this age. And I think this is the next message. You are never too old to start a new life.
Mm-hmm.
And if I and never give up. I did it in my art, I did it in my private life. I never gave up. I always believed and I knew what I wanted, and I fought for it. And if you do it long enough, and it's enough energy, the chances that you get it are high.
Hey, so that's our opening things. I have other things that I do want to talk about, but before we move on to the like conflict resolution in master-slave relationships, because I think that that's worthwhile speaking about. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts, or like, me, that you want to jump in with at this point? Yes. Well, you have to say that thing I just said.
Me.
Thank you. Yeah.
Being in a mixed race relationship, I've been in them. They're tough. If he fucks up and he's racist, how do you deal with it?
Oh, great. So for those who didn't hear, this is an individual who's in a mixed race relationship, And he was like, what happens if they fuck up and do something racist? Which is hilarious because I will say he's actually been remarkably on point.
A German?
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
no. This is totally. Well, that wasn't racist, but he's Austrian.
And Austrian is worse.
Austrians are worse.
And I must confess, I grew up in a Nazi family. But even if you grow up in a Nazi family, you are allowed to use your hand.
And I want you to understand that this is not. He's not exaggerating or using a metaphor. His family were actually party members and fought on the wrong side in the war and raised him in the ideology of racism and hatred. Why don't you tell about the experience that you had when you were in your 20s?
Yeah. About this
About the woman that you met.
Yeah. And there were several experiences which changed my life, but one of them I want to tell you. My teacher, composer, was Hungarian. I only knew he's Hungarian. And I visited him at home. I never would invite my students to at home, but during the time it was usual. And he lived there with his wife and with his mother. And I sat together with his mother for some minutes and I tried to do some small talk. And I did really not know what should I speak with this woman which badly speaks German and I have nothing in common. And I asked her a very bad or stupid question. I asked him, is Ivan your only son? It's impolite. But I really didn't know what to ask him. And she said to me, oh no, I had a second one, but he died. In the Second World War. And this break, maybe you have heard about this break. I cannot copy it because I didn't have her experience. I sat beside this woman. I didn't know anything. I only knew they are Hungarian. And I knew, oh, she's Jewish and she survived the hell. I had the impression the whole room was turning. Like a vortex is going down. It was nothing, just a break. And I also thought, okay, what she has, what her had. She says something such huge, which is much more deep, much more terrible than anything I have heard before. This is one of the experiences. The second was a friend of mine who had used hours of discussion to make me clear that there is no base of this so-called ideology. Nazism is not an ideology. They don't have any ideology. It's only a kind of organism. Not more. They have nothing. And the third thing is of art. The music of John Cage. I don't know if somebody who doesn't know this.
He's the one we do know.
And I understood you may compose music as Arnold Schoenberg and you may remain a Nazi, but you cannot love the music of John Cage. Because the John Cage music is based on freedom, is based on non-intentionality, and I think these three things opened my mind. And they changed my life, and periods of shame, periods of feeling guilty, and now in the States I become more and more free. And yeah, I'm very happy about this. I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I spoke with one of them and said, well, how can you be my friend? But my grandfather tried to kill your grandfather. When my grandfather tried to kill your grandfather. This is incredible. It's amazing that we are friends today. And I'm so grateful about these experiences.
Thank you for sharing that. And I will say he would not have shared this with you guys a month ago.
It's true. Last week I made the coming out in Vienna and I spoke the first time about this.
Which is a big deal because to answer your question or to answer your comment about the Germans, the Austrians are worse.
Much worse.
The Germans did the public, holy shit, we fucked up. To this day, every German student goes to the camps. They are taught the history. They are taught everything. There is an accountability. that the Austrians do not have, even though I just, a couple months ago, saw a film of the town where Georg grew up welcoming Hitler back in the day because he grew up in that area. There's actually a monument to the Anschluss, which is the takeover of Germany, of Austria by the Germans, a monument that was put up in Austria in a beautiful field. It's a lovely monument that they recommissioned as a monument to peace in 1997. So until 1996, it was a monument to Adolf Hitler's annexation of Austria.
Well, it was private property. We can't do anything.
To answer your question, what's amazing about him, and this is a lesson I think especially people in positions of power need to know, he listens to any criticism, no matter how harsh, with completely open ears. So there have been times I've said to him, "Sir, no, you can't know," and he's like, "How did I fuck up? Tell me." And this is to me what is the safety valve that you have, especially in a relationship where you have people who are of equal value, but on unequal power footing. So the person who has the power absolutely has got to be prepared to say, "I fucked up." They have to be prepared to say, "I'm sorry." They have to be prepared to listen and to hear with an open heart. And this is the thing that has enabled me to feel entirely safe in this situation. When we were first together, we went to Austria fairly soon after we were dating, and I was walking around the corner to go to buy some pastry, and there's this beautiful old pastry shop that's like since 1790 whatever. I'm like, "Oh, this is really great." And I'm looking down the sign, and at the bottom of the sign is this little jigaboo pickaninny character dancing with the big, like the big googly eyes and the big red lips and the thing, and I'm like, "Oh!" And I'm like taking a picture, I'm like, "Facebook, holy shit!" And everyone's like, "He's racist!" I'm like, "Ah, blah, blah." And I take him around the corner, I'm like, "Sir, you have to see this." And he's like, "Okay, this is terrible, yes?" "Yes, it's terrible. It's bad. He's like, "Oh my gosh, yes, it's terrible. How dare they? I will tell them now they need to take down the sign." And I'm like, "Cool, it's cool." Just wanted you to know it's sex. And so we are, and we're in Vienna, and you walk into a Viennese pastry shop, and they have this little pastry, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I'm not sure exactly. I suspect that a pastry named Mohrenkopf is a little offensive. He's like, "Oh,
Sorry, Mollena.
Mohrenhemd, sorry, not Kopfhemd."
One cup was German.
Okay. So basically, it's like, "Here's the Negro head pastry," and I'm like,
I made a very, to answer you, I made a very interesting development. The first time when I went to the owner of this shop, said, "Okay, I must give you this information. What you are writing here, more in hand, more in the shirt, it tastes really well. It's chocolate."
"It is delicious."
We came out. My wife is from the States.
Girlfriend.
My girlfriend, I think it's my wife. It's really disturbing her. It's a problem for her. It hurts her to do that. To read that, please remove it. Then I traveled to Austria, and 3 weeks later, we found the same thing in the Styrian restaurant. And I said to the woman,
Styria is like the south of Austria.
maybe
Like
that's
Styria is like
me, yeah.
Mississippi, I think. I feel like.
It's like
Not to be mean if you're from
no,
Mississippi, it's a lovely state, but you know what I
it's
mean.
like this.
Texas.
Texas,
That's true. There's more rootin' and tootin' in Styria.
There's
There's one other more famous Styrian than him. Guess who it is?
It's the same accent like me.
Oh my goodness.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, yes.
He's
10
Styrian.
points for you.
But I want to tell you, and after 3 weeks, I had the same experience in Styria, and I said to the woman, "Please, could you remove this? It hurts me, because it blames my wife." And I think that's honestly a difference, and that it's a process of learning.
And I mean, here's the thing. You can look at someone who does fucked up shit out of ignorance and explain it to them all day and all night. I fight this battle on social media and in public all the time, and it's frustrating. But to have someone who says, I don't know, please show me, and then also gets it and internalizes it, for someone who has white privilege, white cisgender male privilege, to say, this harms me as well, is, for my opinion, and of course, obviously, I do not speak for all of the people who look like me, but to my opinion, this is the only way we're going to ever win this, is if the people who are benefiting from their privilege realize that that actually hurts them as well. Like, that's how that shit changes, and that's the only way it changes, because essentially we are selfish creatures. We fight to stay alive for ourselves. And if in his realization that the racism and the bigotry also harms him, what a remarkable step forward that is. It's to me amazing. And he, really stuck with me last year when the discussion about police brutality became more public. And I was literally face down on the bed, unable to get up and do anything for an entire afternoon because I was so full of helpless rage. And I'll be honest, I don't think white men are used to feeling helpless about things in life and society. It's like, what can we do? What should I do? And I'm like, there's nothing we can do. Nothing. Now, is that true? No. But that's how I felt at the moment. And what was remarkable about that is that he took that and expressed in his way his rage and frustration and sadness and wrote a piece in memory of Eric Garner. And of course got slammed for it by some well-meaning white liberals who were like, you can't say that, that's not your place to say that, this is the thing. And I'm like, oh, and I was like, you tell her, this is what you tell her, and I dictated this whole letter. I said, first and foremost, but what was amazing about it is that as someone who's a fighter myself, I need someone who's also going to fight. I have dated Caucasian men previously who didn't get it, who felt that like, oh, I have a black girlfriend now, I have a free pass to do whatever the fuck I want. And those relationships obviously did not last very long. But it's very difficult to find people who not only get it, but are also willing to fight. And that was one of those things I hadn't thought to ask for on my laundry list of potential owner people. But to have someone who's willing to actually stand up for me in the face of racism and bullshit. He actually, there was his opera was...
I'm proud of it. Not because of Mollena, because of humanity.
Right.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I feel like I'm accustomed to fighting a culture every day for my life on a very real and palpable level. And so to have a partner who would cry with me, who sees that, he's like, you are the most precious property I could ever hope to own. To see you treated this way is breaking my heart. It hurts. What can we do? And part of what we do is that we live as publicly as we can, and that we put that out there, and we are visible. And I believe that the issue of being an interracial couple in Europe is a mixed bag, depending on where you are, even in the same country, depending on what city you're in. Sometimes people don't see you. Sometimes you might not get a table at a restaurant. It's the same thing anywhere. But to me, I will say, I refuse to compromise. If I would, I don't think I will ever be in a position where I have to look for another partner, because he has made me promise to be his slave until he dies, and that I can't have to stay alive until that point. I don't actually have permission to die before he does. He's 16 years older than me, so we have a good shot at that.
You don't have the permission to die before me.
I know. I take this very seriously. But I could never compromise in that way. I could never be with someone who saw fit to fuck up and not fix it from their heart with sincerity and with presence. I don't expect people to be perfect. I expect people to strive for excellence. Like every once in a while there'll be these sort of subtle things he doesn't get. Like I very much love having my head scratched. It's just a thing I have. Like the little hairs on the back of the neck. Like if I'm freaking out, having a bad day, someone just doing this, I'm like, ah. It's like a cat. It's like when you pick up a cat, and they're just like, yeah, life is awesome. Or whatever goes through a cat's brain when you pick them up by the scruff of the neck. I don't know what that is. That's pretty much me. And we were on the one train in Manhattan going home, and I'm sitting down, and he was standing above me, and he reached down and started doing this in my head. And there were 3 black women next to me, like, oh! Like, oh shit, he did not just put his hands on your hair! Like, ready to cut a motherfucker if motherfucker needed cutting. So instantly, I'm just like, it's okay. So I'm like visibly demonstrating, it's cool, coming in, fiance, it's all good. Stand down. Took a couple minutes over, everyone was just being like, all right, I guess that shit is cool, but you should still not do it in public, yo. You know, and I had to explain to him later, like he could sense that something was weird, but just didn't want. I'm like, we have a thing about hair and about white people touching our hair because it happens. He's like, really? I'm like, yes. And so I relayed several anecdotes of white women touching my hair, and he's like, and I'm like, yes, I know, it's terrible. This is part of life. So you know, the thing is that he has the reactions that help me to feel safer. He's outraged when I'm outraged. Never once has he told me, maybe you're exaggerating, maybe you're reading too much into it, maybe you're paranoid, maybe they meant something else. Like, that's just not where he comes from, even with his own people. You know.
Especially with it now.
You know, so that's a remarkable and awesome blessing. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to ask you some more questions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to talk about conflict and conflict resolution in master-slave relationships. The first thing I want to say is because I do share a lot publicly, and those who follow know. And sometimes I don't share that much. I'll just do like, you know, vague booking. You know, today's been a very difficult day, and someone's owner is lucky to be alive. For example. And what a terrible slave would do that. That would be so bad. What I feel very fortunate about are all of the opportunities I've had in my life to not stand up for myself. Anyone here in the room always protect their best interests? Anyone here in the room ever bite their tongue and not say the thing that they know they should say to their partner, significant other, friend, whatever else? You know, now especially in power exchange relationships, and some of this is actually ingrained into the way that they're structured. Slaves and submissives should be seen and not heard. If you are loud or obnoxious or pushy or demanding, that's not very slave-like. You know, and what I have found is I gave up on that hesitancy when I first met him. He was my lab experience in fuck it. I declared a fuckruptcy. I was like, I'm out of fucks. I'm gonna have to like get alone because my shit is gone. And I started small. Like on our first date, we were like fooling around and making out, and he kissed me in a way that like was not erotic for me. And I was like, I should say something. You know, that situation where you're like, this is someone's move, and you're like, you don't want to be like, I don't want to be like, no, your move is failing. What are you doing? Get off me with that. Never touch me again in that way. And there's more polite ways to put it. You can say, oh, let's do this other thing. And there are entire people teaching classes on how to adjust your approach when it comes to giving people feedback or being positive or whatever else. But of course, all that flew out of my head because I'm so busy worrying about, like, I really like this person, but what if, like, that kissing technique they're doing is making me feel like wet and messy and freaked out? What do I do? And so I thought about it, like an hour goes by and he kisses me again. I'm like, I gotta say something. Like 2 hours go by, he's kissing me again. I'm like, I should really say something, you know, but then I was distracted by the, like, 3 hours of oral sex.
Yes.
I know. I was like, and he's just sitting here like all cool, like, yeah. He is a fan of vaginas. And I was like, okay, that made up for the like weird kissing thing. So finally I decided, you know what, let's just see if this works. Let's just see if I can just give someone the feedback, and I thought maybe I could just say, could you maybe just back up a little bit, or maybe a little bit less tongue or something, and I had all sorts of really productive, positive ways I was going to say this to him. And I finally leaned back and I said, could you, that thing you're doing, it's like kissing a horny sex frog. And I was like, oh, that is fucked up. And he said, okay, what should I do then? I was like, close your mouth a little bit more, maybe? Okay, that's nicer. Alright, now do this other thing with the, like, ease into it. Alright, that's great. Maybe bring on the horny sex frog on at the very end. And I was like, wow, that actually worked. And this goes back to the point of, like, how do you deal with someone when they fuck up? It wasn't a fuck up, this is just an awkward thing. And I realized that I could express myself fully, even if it were weird and awkward. And he accepted it. I was like, I can deal with that. I think that that's all right. And this is the first relationship where I have felt that freedom. And to have that freedom within the stricture of a master-slave relationship is amazing because, let's be honest, sometimes it sucks to be a slave. There are days that I do not want to get up and pack all of our shit and get on another goddamn plane and go to racist-ass Graz, Austria for 3 weeks. And people speak
never 3 weeks.
no, never again. You know, we are people who
We
are.
never were in Graz for 3 weeks.
Well, we were in
No,
Austria.
yeah, it was only 1 week, but you felt it.
At least a month. You know, but it was.
But I would like to continue with this sex rock story. I think every man, he does not want to do exactly his technique. What we want is, I feel the most huge success is if I bring my slave to the orgasm. Then
Take note.
to the orgasm. Then I feel, now I'm killing her master, I brought her to this. And I don't want to give her a sex rock kiss. I want to give her this type of kiss which makes her horny. And if she tells me how it is, and she tells it in a way which is full of love, I will learn it, of course. And this is not because I am not the master, I am the master, because I want to bring her to this target. But it's her damn job as a slave to help me to get this.
It's cool because I think that I feel really fortunate that he did not have years in the leather community and the BDSM community. He did not have the opportunity to learn what mastery is. He had the opportunity to say, this is what I want, and this is what I'm going to do to get it. And the thing is that a lot of people come in and they see a certain type of slave or they see a certain type of master and assume that that's how it has to be. And people around him frequently make the joke. They're like, well, who's really the master here? Because I'm like an Australian sheepdog some days. No, here, do this, do something. Have you taken your medication? Where's your Nexium? You know, and like that. And I remember...
Do you have your wallet? Keys? Your cell phone? It's a daily ritual.
It is. It's an hourly ritual some days. You know. But the fact of the matter is, while that might seem very aggressive and very pushy, I explain to people that I'm the slave he needs. And whoever you are as a slave, whoever you are as a dominant, whoever you are as a kinkster, don't fucking compromise. It might take a long time and it might suck along the way, but every day that you have on your own, being ready for the person who sees you in your entirety and your fullness is a day closer that you will be able to share with the person who is absolutely right for you, not the person who's going to jam you into a little box and tell you, this is how you have to be. That is an amazing blessing.
But I would add, this was the question, what do you want from your slave? If I would like some ritual, me here or suck my dick or whatever, I would do it.
Yes, the big sucking ritual.
What she really is doing for me is more than just me down. It is more than just doing some slavery rituals. It does mean make it possible to do my job. It does mean laying the whole day beside me while I'm sitting at the computer, hearing this terrible sound of my notation program, which brings my music in the sound quality of a bad analog of the 60s, and follow me in my emotional stress, of which she does not have any idea. And I tell you why being a composer and also have a relationship is so terrible. You're doing some shit with in a space which is deeply emotional. If I would be a dentist or a lawyer, I never would have this emotional deepness to my profession as I must have as an artist.
Unless you were a sadistic dentist.
Aren't they all?
Not even if it would be sadistic. Because this is much more. And I put something into my profession which normally is only a part of love. And I do it in a way which I cannot communicate with her. If I would be a painter, I could just look what I have painted. If I would be a writer, I could say, please read what I have written. But I'm a composer, I said, please wait, in 6 months you will be able to hear it. This, I would say this is one of the reasons, besides my sexual orientation, why my further marriages crashed down. Because this kind of, it's very problematic. And she's doing this for me. It's much more than the other things. And there's a small segment where, have your fun, tell me, take your next one. To dominate me in this very small, not any important segment of my life. And, by the way, make my life more easy by doing this.
Yeah, having no ego attached to his role as a dominant is an amazing thing because it enables me to let go of my ego attachment to being a slave. Yeah, and that allows me to be the kind of slave I need to be, who is sometimes bossy and pushy and flailing around and freaking out. But I feel safe here, and I feel me here, and I feel at home here with him all the time, which is an amazing blessing. And so, I guess if you have to wrap up soon, but I think if you can, no, what? Oh no, okay. Leave if you want to, we won't be sad. But one of the things I think, I always want to aim for people being able to take away at least one thing, or three if that's possible. The main thing I would say is, please value yourself enough to get what you need. And I know that for me that was a long journey. As a recovering alcoholic, valuing yourself is not a thing that we do. We have to work very hard at that. My owner is someone who has survived childhood abuse, being a Nazi, 3 marriages, 2 adult and 1 young child, failures and successes, and still has the room to show me all of who he is, including the parts that are not pretty, including the parts that are impatient, including the parts that don't get it when I say, hey, maybe we better to not have a gangbang at this German swinger club. Or this other German swinger club.
But, sorry, if you speak about this, I also should make it clear what definitely happened. But what, I have waited for 40 years to get this. It was very, very important for me.
Okay, let me also say, let me just pause here. Not just 40 years to get this.
That is me.
He's very focused artist. You can imagine the type of focus it takes to create music. And he composes in his head, which is apparently unusual for composers. So he comes up with it and then it's just a matter of getting it on the page. So this is a focused motherfucker. So he's had many years and many, many, many hours of porn to become focused on exactly the gangbang he needs to have to fulfill his lifetime gangbang desires.
And then we went in Germany, we went to 2 swinger clubs. The first, at the least, we really found this guy or this group which we have looked for. Somebody who was interested in BDSM, has lived some years in the States, who was exactly, I was so happy now it will work. And then this guy said some racist bullshit.
worst foreplay ever is to start talking about like Muslims and shit. I was like,
later we left.
it's a good thing he didn't say that after I was tied up, because that would have sucked worse.
Okay, then
Yeah.
a little bit longer, but it's very important. Basically, I want to get it, but there's the border. And the second time, we went to a very beautiful second club in Berlin. We should give you the address. It's really nice.
If you were going to Berlin, ask me, like, hit me up on social media, I'll be like, this is a lovely swinger
We
club.
were in this position that the man grabbed her. And at this moment, I had the feeling it's wrong.
Okay, P.S., just so you know, because we have to explain this to kinky people, the swinger community has a yes until no approach. So the gentleman touching me, believe me, it took yes until no. What that means is yeah. So in a swinger club, someone coming over and doing this is cool. That's them saying, hey, let's play. Obviously, in a kink event, that's grounds for ejection. So I had to really adjust my whole worldview to go to a swinger club. So the fact that we are on a bench making out and this guy comes over and touches my leg is a way for him to indicate that he's interested in getting involved. And fortunately, I did not kick him in the grapes and say, no! Because that's my...
You were not allowed to do that.
I know, you were right. And I did, I restrained myself, I was good.
Well,
I just said, sir, I believe this gentleman is interested in joining us.
and then she was so disappointed.
And I was so sad.
I said, no, that's the wrong one. Let's leave. And watching what happened later, I'm so happy. And the important, I think it's also important, always listen to your inner voice.
Yeah.
And even if you have the program, this is what happened now, but then, and then be strong enough to say, no, thanks, and I'm so happy for it.
So yes, so I'm happy to report that I finally did put together the awesome gangbang. I feel like I need to write an article like how to get the gangbang together. I'm like, first of all, get somebody else to help you. Don't plan it yourself if you're the bangy. Like, get some banger people in there. Also go to Sweden because the Swedish are hilarious. They're just like, oh yes, we will help. You're like 5 Swedish men are like, sure, we're here for it. Where do you need us to put our penises? After we've had some fika, and tea and some crab cakes or shrimp sandwiches. So, what was I saying? Yes, conflict resolution. First of all, feeling safe. Second of all, being able to take feedback well, and not just take it well, but to authentically take it. I know that it's oftentimes difficult for dominant types to say I was wrong and I fucked up, but let me tell you, that is some of the most arousing shit you can say. Nothing makes me want to serve someone more than when they say, okay, that was, I was right, you were wrong. You know? I mean, the fact that we finally, I enlisted the assistance of 2 friends in Stockholm to help with this gangbang, and they brought their friends, and we got a really nice hotel room, and we had snacks, and we had our safer sex talk, and did all the thing, and, you know, I had my blindfold, and the guys were coming in, and this is the thing no one tells you about gangbang is when you have cisgendered males, you're going to spend a lot of the evening just making them feel okay about their dicks. And like what the dick does or does not do at any particular given time, and how that dick compares to the dick next to them, you know, and everything else. And I was like, goddess mama mom, like your penis is great, just as it is, yay. You know, but the fact of the matter was that this experience that we had among friends and people who were genuinely there and people who were like, yeah, we want to help you fulfill your fantasy, great, was so much more moving, I think, and very much worth that wait. And part of conflict resolution has to be about understanding when it's time to back off. And I think it's really hard sometimes in power exchange dynamics for people to feel that and to know that. As a submissive and as the bottom and as the slave, I have a reflex to let him do what he's going to do. He's the owner, he's the dom, he's the master. But he's also a very temperamental artist. The artist mentality, the artist temperament is a real thing. And I'll never forget the first time he flipped out and went off on some rampage on something, and I was like, I should stop him, I should step in and say something, and I'm like, I can't. To the point where, you know, more recently, at the opening, there was a problem, and I grabbed him and physically restrained him. And I'm sure that some submissive type people will hear this and go, "Oh, no, I'm like,
But
you don't
But you
You don't
saved the
have
life
to.
of the conductor.
I did. I've saved several lives in the artistic community in Europe. At least 2 conductors owe me their lives. And the fact of the matter is, while it would be completely inappropriate for some slaves to be like, no, sir, no, and grab them by the back of the collar and stop them from running backstage, I have to have the ovaries to do that. Because that is my job. And it was outside my comfort level for a long time. Until I finally said, if I don't do it, disaster's gonna strike.
I think he's talked too much, darling.
I
I would be very glad if we stay here. If you have some questions, we could speak between 1 to 1 or 2 to 6 or however.
There's that gangbang again.
know he's trying to like sneak in a little gangbang set. He's like, in case 6 of you want to come up to room 606, this evening might be so
Oh,
good.
darling, you have an amazing number.
Oh, right, I didn't think about that. You're hilarious.
Look at the 0 between them.
66? That doesn't even make sense. You're too ambitious and my vagina's too tired. So, yes.
I think it really has to be said. You two might be one of the most evolved and beautiful couples on the planet right now. Really, especially with your history as a black woman in America, and your history as an African male. You two are just teaching sexuality and life and career and education and also staying young. Your ages are meaningless because you have the play element to your relationship. You two look like little kids, and it's beautiful that you have that. I'm saying all this to say interracial relationships are slowly happening, but it's also needs to happen more. But you two have taken it.
More education.
Everybody. I do believe everybody's racist, especially if they aren't fucking people of other races. Just period.
Well, you can fuck people of other races and still be
And still be
racist.
racist, yes, but
Generally, it's probably less of the case with people who are involved
stick
in
to
those,
their own.
versus people owning slaves non-consensually,
Yes.
for example.
So how long did it take to get to the point where you two could really feel comfortable where you are and just be like fuck the world, because your love is really about as revolutionary as it comes, being master slave, it's cisgendered European male and American black female. You need a movie on you.
We need a reality TV show.
Oh,
That would be hilarious. I will say that for me, the revelatory, the thing that enabled me to do this is being a recovering alcoholic. And I will tell you why. Because I hated myself passionately for many years. And when I stopped drinking, I had to learn to be human. I had to learn to deal with feelings. I had to learn to deal with feelings without medication. I had to learn to be compassionate for myself in a way that I think even sober people don't need to learn. And having that degree of compassion for myself enables me to look at him with compassion even when he's being an asshole. When he has his issues, when he has his meltdowns, when he freaks out, I look at him and I think, where was I before March 2007? What was I doing? What were my issues? And I'm able to take a breath and say, he is struggling, I struggle too. And I'm one of those people who kind of believes in if not fate, something larger that moves us around. And whatever it was, the larger thing that moved us towards each other, I feel like part of the conflagration of the soul that I had to endure is very similar to how forests need to burn down, some of them, in order to grow. And there were parts of me that needed to be burned away to prepare me and to get me to a place where I could have a soul and a heart big enough to create space for an amazing individual. You know, he is incredible. I cannot stress enough how much respect I have for him, not just as an artist, but as a human being. How much he's taught himself and how much he teaches me and how much I feel like, as you say, I feel like we can teach the world outside of just kink and BDSM. It's about self-acceptance and radical self-acceptance and love and compassion even against some shockingly horrifying odds. I do it because I'm compelled to, because I feel like we shouldn't. I feel like so much of society is telling us don't do master-slave, for God's sakes, especially not you. Especially not you. And when there's something that is especially not mine, I especially want it.